calling this meeting to order. Welcome. We're going to get started with item number 2, our public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No.
All right, then I will close the public comment. Item 3, action items. 3A, I need a motion to approve the October 4th, 2023 minutes.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, we're going to start with information items, and we're going to start with the federal legislative update. Welcome, Harry Glenn. How's the snow up there?
Oh, can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Oh,
He says that's your loss. I'm gonna keep going.
Harry,
hold on, Harry. We can't hear you. We got IT here fixing it. Hold on.
Hey, how about now?
yeah,
Is
there
that
we
better?
go. Yeah.
Okay.
How's the snow?
Can you see me? Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you and hear you. Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I don't see me on the screen. So anyway, no, it's a crisp 38 degrees and windy here today. So there are lots of leaves coming down. It looks like snow, but it's not snowing yet. So it's good. Yeah, I don't have a huge report today. As you know, the House was spent the last 3 weeks trying to elect a new speaker, which they finally did last Wednesday. So Mike Johnson from Louisiana is the new Speaker of the House, and he quickly started Congress or the House back on work on regular appropriations bills, passing one last Thursday, and they're scheduled to take up 3 more this week, including, Brad, the Transportation Appropriations Bill, which is the bill that includes your $1 million earmark from Representative Castor for your charging infrastructure and the pier trolley. So that the House will get to work on that later this week and probably finish it up next week. But it's good that the House is now engaged. They passed 5 of the 12 regular appropriations bills. They hope to get the other 7 done before Thanksgiving. The new Speaker has indicated that his plan for the resolving the budget situation, as you know, the continuing funding resolution expires on November 17th. So Congress is going to have to pass another continuing funding resolution. The new Speaker's plan is to pass a continuing resolution into January 15th to give the House and the Senate time to complete work on 12 individual appropriations bills and try and get them signed into law by January 15th. That would be good because if we can get those bills signed into law, then your earmark will become part of the law too and eventually find its way to you. So that's the best outcome we can hope for. The situation, though, is if they don't finish their appropriations work until January, or if they have to extend a little bit longer, it's probably going to delay, Brad, the submission of the next budget request from the president. Usually that comes out the first Monday in February. More than likely, it'll have to be delayed at least until March, or possibly even April, depending how long it takes the House and Senate to finish up their appropriations bill. So that could slow down the beginning of the next appropriation cycle, and as you know, next year is an election year. That always slows things down even more. So, but first things first is to try and get the appropriations bills done this year. I'm not sure I have anything else. That all the federal grant opportunities that typically start up in the fall or early in the new year are going to have to be delayed because they can't advertise some of those new grant opportunities until the budget situation is resolved. So, as you know, we'll be starting year 3 of the enhanced funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This will be the 3rd funding cycle coming up, but that will likely be, I don't think you'll see many notice of funding opportunities until early next year. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Brad. I know you have a longer state agenda, so I was trying to keep this brief. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Brad, you have anything you want to ask?
Well, thank you, Harry. Good morning. Yeah. I don't know if this is really a federal thing or a state thing, but this ongoing saga with the union dues and having our grants being held up by the Department of Labor, that apparently has stalled at the state level because the state filed a lawsuit against the Department of Labor. And so we now have a grant we have, I think, earmark, we have an earmark at DOL now, which, Pam, our grants person doesn't think will trigger or something, but then the next thing is the, raise grant that we got for the Clearwater Transit Center, that will soon be going there. And then, I don't know, I forwarded you the lobbyist for the Florida Transit Association, I guess, talked to Senator Hooper, who didn't think that they could do anything
Yeah, so
until.
Harry, what's happened is that Ashley Moody in the States now has been engaged. They're suing the federal government for withholding funds based upon this state law, saying that they don't have the authority to do that. I think what Senator Hooper's, we have not talked to Senator Hooper, but I guess they've talked to the association, which is the right answer, by the way. Anytime there's a pending lawsuit, the legislature typically will not pass legislation that would impact the pending litigation, so. Now it's November, so, session's not until January. Not that we expect anything to be done between now and then, but, there's always an opportunity during session, starts January 9th, between January, February, and the first week of March. Hopefully, at that point, if there is resolution or there's movement from a litigation standpoint, if it's dismissed, if they try to come to an agreement, that would still allow us the opportunity to work with the association, as we originally talked about, of trying to get something in one of the transportation bills.
Okay, and there's still the opportunity, I hope, to just
Do
get
temporary.
a temporary waiver.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
assume so, yeah.
Hey, Brad, it's Harry. I do worry, though. I have not, and I'm happy to call the Department of Labor. I haven't done that yet, but I don't know how they're going to respond to this lawsuit. I don't know whether that puts on hold any letters they can send back to allow your grants to move forward or not. I don't know how that works. So I don't know if the Florida Transit Association is checking in on that. If you want us to check in on that, I don't know what the answer to the question would be. If you submit a request for Department of Labor approval, are they going to say we can't respond until the lawsuit's settled? I don't know the answer to that. I agree with Ron. If it was a congressional issue, Congress would probably hold off taking any action until the court case was resolved, but I don't know what the Department of Labor would do.
I will ask the state association if they know the answer to that. I don't know. It's a good question.
And Harry, to be proactive, I think you should ask, on behalf of PSD, I think you should just ask the Department of Labor. I think you may get a quicker answer there than us trying to wait for the association, because we're probably there's two others that have already had either temporary or permanent waivers put in place. We have not, so right now, we would be the one that would be impacted potentially.
Yeah.
Has the lawsuit actually been filed yet, or is it just being drafted?
It's been filed.
It's been filed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. We'll see what happens with the appropriations in DC. Okay.
Anything else, Brad?
I think that's it on the federal. Yeah.
All right, Ron, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you do for us. You have a great day, and keep us
Thank you.
keep us updated on the snow. All right, we're gonna move on to our next item, which is 4A, State Legislative Update and Proposed Changes to PSTA Act, and I'm gonna turn it over to Ron Pierce.
Mr. Chairman, all quiet until I have to, I don't have an update this morning.
Oh, what a funny.
Nice try.
So let me start with a couple of things. Let me start off just where we are from a general timeline standpoint. Let me start there. So we just completed committee week number 3 last week or the week before. We're back in Tallahassee 2 weeks in November, starting next week. And then we have 2 committee weeks in December. Session starts January the 9th. So bills are being filed. Nothing has moved yet in Tallahassee. There has been no bills that have been actually on an agenda. This upcoming week, they're doing special session in Tallahassee, which I'm sure you probably all saw. Again, we don't expect a lot of bills for the 2024 session, probably move next week. I think you'll start seeing the move probably the following week, most likely. What is, just like last year, what's gonna happen is when everything's kind of moving late, you'll see a lot of bills move at the end of, those kind of last week, 5 and 6 of committees. Then the first 2 or 3 weeks of session, there'll be long agendas as bills are kind of winding their way through the process. Last year, when everything moved late, you would have thought like not a lot would have passed. Remember, we passed north of 350 bills last year, which was not a record number, I don't think, but it was the most bills they've passed in a long time in Tallahassee. So that's number one. Number two is, let's talk about the local bill. So let me start with the process, and then let me share with you. Brad and I have known for a couple of months that this could be coming. We've had conversations with with the bill sponsor about it, with Representative Cheney, and I'll share that in a moment. So just for you all to understand is, they had a delegation meeting last week, which some of you were at.
There's no one named Armando Genie who shares their location.
So at that meeting, for a local bill to move forward, a member has to bring basically, a concept forward saying, I want to file a local bill on PSTA relating to governance and other issues. So they discussed it as a delegation last week, which basically kind of checks the box for them being able to move forward. There are a handful of local bills, I think they were published yesterday, including this one, which was, first time we saw it was when it was released to the delegation. And now it comes back to the delegation, I believe on November the 30th, I don't have it on my calendar, but I believe.
29th, I think it is.
29th or 30th. And if that-
29th?
November 29th is the second Pinellas delegation
Okay,
meeting.
thank you.
So the 29th, we'll make sure that you all have the details on that. At that point in time, the actual bill itself then would have opportunity for public comment, would have the opportunity at that point to get voted on by the delegation. Just to be clear, the way a local bill it has to be approved by the majority of the members of the House, the senators that are there, to be able to be introduced in Tallahassee. Once it's introduced in Tallahassee, that just means the delegation's kind of blessed it to go up to Tallahassee. If it goes to Tallahassee, a local bill only winds its way through the House. It does not go through the Senate. So it goes through the House. Typically, we'll have 3 committees of reference in the House. So it'll wind its way through kind of 3 committees. And then at that point in time, it goes to the Senate if it passes the House. And the majority of the time, most local bills at that point, if they've passed the House, it just goes on a consent calendar, a local bill consent calendar in the Senate. So, because at that point, normally, if it's made it that far in the process, normally, the House is fine with it, senators are fine with it at that point, if it's kind of made it through the entire House process. If it goes over to the Senate, it's on the consent calendar, and at that point, they take up all the local bills at one time and they pass them, as one group. There is an option where a senator can pull a local bill if they have concerns or questions with it. We can talk about that process later on, but I'm not saying that's our strategy, but Senator Rouson did mention at the end of the, at the end of that discussion that, making sure that if the House, this is, kind of a House member that's driving this, is making sure that senators are also involved kind of in the process of what's ultimately in the bill. So we met with Representative Cheney probably 6 weeks ago, just over a month ago, and she brought up just kind of overarching concerns with governance, accountability, and Sunrunner. So, and she felt that, if you look at our Enabling Act, it hasn't been opened up in a long time. She felt that based upon some of the concerns that have been raised to her by either county commissioners, if they've been raised by constituents, if they've been raised by, other folks in the process, that she felt at a minimum, based upon governance, accountability, and, some of the decisions I think revolve around Sunrunner, that it would be healthy exercise to have the delegation, have a discussion about the local bill. She's talking to other delegation members, and then, come up with whatever the proposal would look like. So if you look at the proposal, and let me start with, we're still trying to digest. I didn't say we had a call with the board's attorney yesterday. We're still trying to figure out if this passed as is, what's the impact on PSTA from a financial standpoint, a decision-making standpoint, and just from an overall business standpoint. So I don't think we need to get all in the weeds there, but I'll kind of give you just a kind of high level of kind of what's in the bill. allow you all to ask some questions, and from there, we can kind of see where the discussion goes. Obviously, the biggest change, at the very beginning of the bill, it takes the current governance structure, it shrinks it down to 9 members. 7 would be appointed by the county commission, could be a commissioner, it could be somebody from within the commission district, but 7 appointees basically would be controlled by the county commission, 1 by the, St. Pete City Council, and 1 by the governor. Then you get into, there's a number of different sections where it looks like what they're doing within the local bill is making sure that there's a new checks and balance with the county commission. So for example, like eminent domain, if there's anything relating to eminent domain, it would have to go, before, the Pinellas, County Commission. If you're talking about the sale, transfer, or lease of property, again, it looks like that would now have to be something that would be approved by the county commission. If you get into, fairs, for example, there would be at least 2 public meetings by the Board of County Commissioners, with a 30-day public notice. Because it basically says within the bill that shall not offer free fares except to veterans, so besides veterans. So it looks like anything kind of from a fair standpoint, they're kind of getting into, again, the Board of County Commissioners would be involved in that. And at the end, there was a lot of discussion in the bill about just advertising in general with regards to, again, what has to be approved by the county commission, but also with regards to, I think what advertisements would be allowable, within this bill would be allowable by PST to offer. So, with that being said, there's a bunch of other things that are in here, including some things obviously relating to Sunrunner at the end of it, like section 2243. You're talking about lane elimination. Again, that would be something that would have to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So with Sunrunner, for example, I think there's a lot of things that would have impacted the decision-making process for Sunrunner if this was ultimately in place. So I'll stop there. I am more than happy to, answer any questions from a process standpoint. We obviously do plan to sit down with, Representative Cheney about the bill. And I'll share with you one final comment. And I've told this to Representative Cheney, I'm gonna tell this to you, and I've told this to, a bunch of other people that are, that are in the process that have called me about this. I'm a big believer that the legislature, when they create an enabling act, it's the full authority of the legislature to have the ability to change your enabling act. That you were created by the Florida legislature, the Florida legislature has the ability to change it. So, so they have the full right and exercise of what they're doing here. But I also think it is important for you all as committee members and you all as board members, if there are concerns that you all have from a governing body with what's being outlined, I think it's your duty probably to share that not only with the bill sponsor, but also share that with, potential members of the legislative delegation. Obviously, if it goes to Tallahassee at that point, and then share it with members of the respective committees that it would go through. Let me remind you all, so I represented T-BARDA. T-BARDA was, on the repealing, there was bills filed to repeal for 3 consecutive years. It took the finally kind of the 3rd year where changes were made. The leading up to that point, the first 2 years that T-BARDA was in the process of legislation that was filed, T-BARDA never, as a board of directors, never took an official position to oppose the bill, but the board was very active on just being a resource and asking questions about it, but more importantly, there was a lot of misinformation out there, addressing that misinformation as that bill kind of wound its way through the process. The 3rd year when it finally passed, T-BARDA did take a position to support it, because at that point they were having some issues with local funding, so it was just time, I think, they realized that the sunset it. So with all that being said, they do have the authority to do what they're doing, but again, if you as committee members or you as board members, I think have questions or concerns, I think it's also your duty to make sure that those are being raised, and we'll do our best to try to get those addressed by the delegation, and more importantly, by the bill sponsor as well.
Thank you so much for that. I have some comments, but I'm gonna start out with anybody else has questions. Anybody? Go ahead, Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, so, comments and questions. So first of all, I think this really becomes, and I'm absolutely preaching to the choir here, but this is 100% a home rule issue, right? I mean, this is they're literally trying to eliminate the seats of every person that's sitting in this committee right now. Maybe with the exception of St. Pete, but.
Probably, especially St.
Yeah, probably, but, you know, and as, you know, a transportation authority that covers Pinellas County, it should absolutely be represented by people who represent residents of Pinellas County, which is what all of us do. So I think, you know, there's a lot of other things that we, you know, need to talk. I just spent the last couple of minutes marking this up and, you know, probably don't have time to really get into the weeds. We'll maybe sit down in Tallahassee and talk about some of my real concerns, but, yeah, I think that's one of the things we need to continue to talk about. I think that, you know, I agree that the legislature absolutely has the right to open up and review our authority, and it's probably a good thing to do every once in a while to kind of check and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. That's accountability. But, you know, some of the things that are in here talking about following, you know, Florida government finance, or, you know, budget practices, we do. We're audited every year as a government body. You know, it's just, it really gets into some issues where, you know, this is a bill in search of a problem instead of, you know, trying to fix something that is, you know, that is going wrong. I don't want to call anybody out particularly in you know, person, but, you know, there's just a lot of things that are going on with this bill that are not happening. And, you know, there's a perception of some issues that might be happening in one small area of this county, but, you know, the vast majority of it is appreciated by the, you know, the reports that we saw at our last meeting. Even people who don't ride the bus appreciate the bus. So, you know, I think all of those issues need to be brought forward to Rep. Cheney. I would really like to be able to see that this bill not make it past the next delegation meeting. I think, you know, if we could start having that conversation with, you know, some of the other representatives and senators that, who, you know, obviously should be at this next delegation meeting, I think that's where this conversation needs to start. And if it makes it past then, or past that point, then we start having the conversation about, you know, what do we do to kill it in the House. But I think we should try to kill it at the next delegation meeting before it even gets any legs. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Any questions? Anything? All right, Jeff?
No.
Nothing? Yes.
Have you looked at, so this basically puts PSCA under the authority of the county, like the Board of County Commissioners?
It puts a number of, probably not every aspect of the business decision-making body, for you as a body, would be under the authority of the county commission. But yes, many of the aspects would now have to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners on a couple different fronts, you know, and again, like I talked about, if it's eminent domain, if it's, you know, the advertising, if it's sale, lease, and transfer of property, if it's the, potential, you know, taking of lanes for, you know, for Sunrunner, all of those different things now would have to be approved by the county commission for those issues to be rolled forward.
Okay.
And the governance would change, of course, to be county appointed mostly.
Right, and so it isn't really clear here if the Board of County Commissioners could appoint themselves. Would they have that option?
I believe they would.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
Yep. Yeah,
It
believe.
I don't think it was clear, so.
Yep. Maybe to appoint somebody, they can appoint themselves. Right, Rob?
Yeah, who may be selected from the membership of the commission or an elected
Oh.
official representing an area within the boundaries of that commissioner's
So
district.
I was thinking by, so,
Yeah.
okay. And so,
And I have been asked, by the way, the one question I have been asked that, by another board member is, has this been, is this being proposed by Pinellas County? Or has the county commission taken a position on that? And to the best of my knowledge, the answer is no. But I mean, I think it's coming from the legislature, and there may be commissioners that are involved with it, but I don't think the county commission, obviously, I don't think has had a public discussion on this, or has taken a public position on, on this. Because again, a lot of the decision-making process would be shifting over to them. So, again, I have been asked if Pinellas County Commission has taken a position on it. And again, to the best of my knowledge, because it just came out yesterday, would be no, but because up until yesterday, we didn't know what we were reacting to. I mean, it's one thing that I've talked with Brad a lot about over the last month, is we kind of knew something was coming. You have to wait to see what's coming before you start trying to answer questions and developing a strategy, because we weren't sure what was gonna be within the actual bill. We were at the delegation meeting. For those of you who were there, it sounded like other members were open to the idea of opening it up, hasn't been reviewed in a while. And also looking more from a governance standpoint. And I would say that this, it does change the governance model. And I guess you could argue that some of the other things would be considered from the governance structure, but it does definitely change the decision-making process of the board.
Okay. And Harry, are you still on with us?
No, he's gone. Oh, he's here.
Oh.
I am. I am.
Hey, have you heard any word that this is a discussion that is going to be taken up by Pinellas County? Because you work with Pinellas County, right?
I do, but I have not heard of anything, no.
Okay, just checking, thanks. It would be good to know if we see when something like that is coming. It's really unfortunate that that legislative delegation meeting was held last Thursday when St. Petersburg City Council was in some very heavy committee meetings. And I believe the Board of County Commissioners had a workshop that day as well. So I was very disappointed that I was unable to attend. Is this something that is this a setup, this proposed structure? Does that exist in any other county in Florida? Have we looked into precedent or a model that this could have been based from or based on?
We have not. And my guess is most other transit agencies probably have different governance models.
Well, there are a number of transit systems in Florida that are county departments. Are so
Right, small.
completely like a system about our same size in Palm Beach County they're county employees. The bus drivers and everything are county employees. They do have a advisory board like counties do, of citizens that are, but it's really the county commission. It's a county department. And Miami-Dade is like that, Fort Broward. There are those, but there's nothing like this.
Hart's in the process. So last year, if you recall too, the legislature did pass a bill requiring DOT to do a study.
Right.
And it looks like what we're hearing is, we believe that study will ultimately kind of focus on Hart's kind of governance structure as well. So we don't know what that is. That report's not out. There's been nothing filed. I don't think there'll be legislation filed until the report from DOT is made public. And I don't think that report will be made public probably until the end of this month or sometime in December, but it's due by December the 31st.
Right, so, in a couple of months, we'll have some really interesting information on another transit authority that's being conducted by a third party, which that always, tells us that that's being done by a neutral party.
Yeah.
And so I will be very interested to see what comes out of that in terms of what they are recommending for Hart. We know that Hart and their challenges are in stark contrast to the management and operation of PSTA. However, there could be something that could be learned from the recommendations that come out of that regarding governance and how that's set up. Not that we would want to just follow that, and I'm certainly not saying that I support what's in here, I believe that, the official who filed this bill, might learn something and could consider waiting to see what that looks like. Because I think looking at another example and recommendations from a nearby authority could be helpful. And it could also be used by us to create that contrast, or sort of amplify the contrast. Because I think we are doing a lot of these things already. I'd love to learn more about what has been identified that's broken, because I agree with Commissioner Robinson that this, at first glance, this appears to be a solution in search of a problem. Hart has problems. Everybody knows it. They are working on solutions. And I think no matter what happens, there's something we could learn from that. But I don't think that I think it could be nothing but helpful to wait until that audit is completed to see how that compares to what's being proposed here. And I would also like to see how some of the other transit authorities in our state of similar size and larger are put together. Again, not to change to match any of them, because I think if anything, given the performance that PSTA has demonstrated, the recent award, I mean, you don't get that stuff by being bad at what you do. So if anything, I think they should be looking at how we do things. But having said that, I would like to see how some others are structured. Because it could, I mean, what I'm really getting at is that can help me in making a case regarding some of the elements that are in this bill. So I wonder if that research is something that you have on file, or?
Well, we do have a lot of information, yeah, about the way we can
Yeah.
give you way other transit systems are structured. And of course, we have our attorney, Alan Zimmett, who has been here since PSTA was created. And the PSTA governance has changed over the 40 years of existence. He was telling me and Ron yesterday that maybe originally or at some point, the Pinellas Legislative Delegation appointed a lot of the members of PSTA. The legislative delegation did, and at least what he recalled was that the city, that the local elected officials over time felt like they were not accountable. That these were citizens or people that the legislative delegation knew that served on PSTA, but it didn't have accountability to the municipalities or the county or the local elected officials. That was one example. T-BARTA had a bunch of gubernatorial appointees that and Ron can speak to this, but I mean they just weren't appointed.
Right.
They were vacant for a long time. Hart has gubernatorial appointees that are still vacant for more than 5 years.
Right, so I think that those kinds of facts are worth having together, because basically that would be proposing that we become more like that and end up with vacant positions. I really want to get a full picture of this, and looking at others I think is very helpful. So, let's see, my question for Ron is, I'm understanding that this has to be voted on by a majority of the House and the Senate from the local delegation in order to move forward.
Correct.
when is their next meeting?
November the 29th.
November 29th. I can send him
It's
invite
the
now.
day that the, Florida
1
League of
o'clock.
Cities legislative conference starts. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah,
Yes.
so the majority of the board.
No, thank you.
in
Okay,
Tallahassee or in Orlando.
Commissioner Dow, you had a question?
I did, thank you, Chair. First of all, I do certainly piggyback all both the questions and the comments coming from the board. But in doing the research or bringing anything back to us, if it could also be how those agencies are funded.
Yeah, we can do that, yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
David, anything?
I'm perplexed with this. This was initiated in St. Pete's Beach.
House Representative Linda Cheney brought it up at the meeting, the delegation meeting.
He does represent that district.
It's her bill.
I mean, it just seems like even the free fare thing, it's just, I'd read through this, and I haven't had a chance to really study this, but just quickly going through it, it's just not PSTA. I mean, I don't understand. Well, first of all, I don't understand by putting it into the county how that's gonna benefit. It makes it 9, right? 9, so it'd be
Yeah.
7 and 3, or 7 and,
It'd be 7 and 2. It'd be
Two.
seven either county commissioners or representatives appointed by a county commissioner, one from the city of St. Petersburg, and then one from the governor.
I don't know, I just get real tired of seeing Tallahassee, telling everybody what they think everybody should do, taking away a lot of things that I think doesn't help local communities. And to me, this is one of them right here. I think we're doing just fine, and I don't understand why the need for this. So I would vehemently oppose this. I'm gonna be talking to my representatives as well to see if we can just not have any support in this, for this. What's your feeling about this as far as support?
So we have not talked to any member of the delegation yet. We did meet with Representative Cheney prior to her filing this, like I said, 6 weeks ago or so. She brought up, 3 specific issues at that point in time: governance, accountability, and Sunrunner. So I think in her mind, which you can see Sunrunner and some of these things that I think have been outlined in the local bill. We have not talked to any other local delegation members at this point in time about the bill. It was just published yesterday, so the first time that many members of the delegation probably saw it was yesterday afternoon.
I mean, I think this is pushback against Sunrunner and St. Pete Beach, if you ask me. And there's just a lot of things in here that I don't like, just at first glance. So I think we ought to do what we can to push, to talk to all our people that represent our different, and I think the full board needs to know about this. And
We do have a trip planned to Tallahassee for, not next committee week, but I think it's the following committee week. Yeah, the Brad. So I know that we'll have Brad and a couple of board members up there. We plan to meet. We were already going to meet with delegation members at that point in time, so I'm sure this will come up in that discussion, so.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Dow?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Look, sort of 2 just maybe things to consider. One, the question about the county is a good question, whether they, now they've seen this bill. I don't know if they are gonna take a position for or against these new responsibilities. But I know that, or I was told, I didn't attend, that, they had their own, meeting with the legislative delegation, and this didn't come up at all.
Which one?
Pinellas County Commission met with the delegation maybe a couple weeks ago.
They do a joint meeting every year, kind of going into executive session to talk about, different priorities.
You didn't attend that meeting, did you? Okay.
Was that recorded?
I don't know if it's recorded.
I'm
Sure it
assuming that
was.
it probably was, but
And we can ask, our county commissioners. This, I was told by one of our board members that it didn't come up. Nothing about this came up.
Well, it was just filed, so.
Yeah, right. But I mean, the question that you asked about whether the county, knows, or, wants these new responsibilities, I think is an important question to ask. And then the second was the issue that Ron brought up about whether the PSTA board, maybe it doesn't even matter, but whether the PSTA board would take a collective position on the bill. T-BARTA didn't take a position, and maybe that says something. That says something to me. Maybe, I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but those are the two things: whether the county would take a position or have an opinion, and whether the PSDA collectively. Certainly, individuals.
when's your next board meeting?
It's in December. It's after the meeting.
But I think the board needs to be, have you sent anything out to the full board yet? Or you sent
No.
something out to the delegate? And I'm not sure if it rises to the level of, you don't need to do a special board meeting, but at least do a board call potentially to update members on, because I'm sure they're gonna start getting phone calls about this.
Absolutely.
So I think board members should
Yeah.
at least be educated, on the process, because it's a local bill, it's not a, it follows a different process. So they understand the process, they need to probably understand, what's in the bill at that point in time. And then at that point, like I said, look, from a lobbying perspective, we serve at the pleasure of the board of directors. So if they take a position or don't take a position, we'll follow the direction of the board. Again, I
Yeah.
do believe that, I think meeting with delegation members, with board members, I think to share any questions or concerns that they have with this. And I think that first meeting to be with Representative Cheney. I think we need to be really transparent with her, that if you all have questions or concerns, you meet with her first. Share with, and we can be very transparent with her that when we meet with other delegation members, here's the questions and comments that we're gonna raise with them, but we wanted to raise it with you first, as the sponsor of the bill.
Okay, Commissioner Gao, you said you have one more question?
Yeah, actually, I didn't do it too, just because of recent conversation. The first one is, Ron, sorry for the C students in the room. What do we actually call this? It doesn't appear to have a bill number.
It doesn't, right now,
But it
this is
is
just a draft. This doesn't exist until the delegation actually takes a formal position at the delegation meeting. And so at the delegation meeting, basically, they're voting on a concept, right? So they'll vote on whatever, and my understanding is a local bill has to be filed with the delegation, or sent, when I say filed, sent to the delegation 1 week prior to them actually voting on it. So on November the 22nd, whatever the final version of this would have to be then sent to all the delegation members. At that meeting, if it's approved by the delegation, at that point, Representative Cheney would file a local bill in Tallahassee. And that would kind of look like, just like a normal, it'd be a local bill, but it would have a bill number. This wouldn't be a Senate companion. Again, the way the local bill process works in Tallahassee, local bills are only heard in one chamber, and then they're ultimately, they just end up on the consent calendar over in the Senate, so.
Okay, so when I'm talking to my colleagues, this is just a bill draft
It's just, this
to burn
is just,
down PSTA. Is that the way I refer to it?
this is just it's a proposed bill that the delegation will take action on November the 29th.
All right, thank you.
Do we have a list of delegation names somewhere?
It's
Yeah.
online, sure. And, Councilman Robinson?
Yeah, so a couple
And
things.
we can share that, that's easily
Yeah,
sent,
we
so
can
we can make sure that we can send that to you.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to know why we wouldn't call a special meeting on this, to at least so the entire board understands the process. Is there a reason why we
And we
wouldn't?
could do a Zoom.
We could do a Zoom or, yeah. Good.
Yes, go ahead.
Since this is very early in the process,
Mhm.
I'd like to have time to learn more and work on this and talk with some of our other representatives from the Pinellas delegation. Because for this to go anywhere, it's gotta have the votes. And so I'd like to fill this out because it could be DOA. So I think before we go calling a special meeting, we actually have time right now to have some conversations, find out where people are, go through this point by point to develop our position, a proposed position, and we could discuss this at our next legislative committee meeting and send it to the December board meeting for consideration. But just like with every other committee meeting, all board members are invited, and I'll get a chance to speak. And we would, of course, take that into consideration. So I would say, rather than a special meeting, to focus on something that may not be going anywhere.
Great.
We could use our regular schedule. I mean, I don't know offhand when our next legislative committee is, and then the board meeting. I think they're close because it's after Thanksgiving, right?
Right. Actually, that's right. I mean, it's right after the legislative, well, it's, right after the legislative delegation meeting. No, we don't have a legislative committee in December.
We don't.
We don't.
Okay, then.
So the board meeting is the week after the legislative delegation meeting.
Yeah, it's the 6th.
Yeah.
If I may, Chair, and the reason I'm bringing this up is to actually along the same lines of your thought process, but to understand how this bill operates, the journey it could take and may take, instead of just those who had the opportunity to come here today, let's bring them together and tell them what it, because the more board members we have in support of this, the more board members we'll have reaching out to all of the delegation members, instead of a smaller group. I'm just trying
Yes.
to cast the net,
Thank you.
is my thought.
I
And
see
it's
your
just-
point,
and it's
and I
just a
agree.
thought, but
I would
I'm
strongly recommend that we invite Representative Cheney to present at that meeting.
And right after this meeting is over, I'll send the bill to the full PSA board. I sent it to the legislative committee and the alternates.
right, so the full board hasn't seen this.
No.
We're not gonna meet until after the next delegation meeting. I'd like to at least have the board discuss it, to provide them all the tools necessary for them to make a decision to show up at the next delegation meeting.
Okay, so we need to do something
Yes.
before the 29th.
Right, but I'm not necessarily proposing, that's not a motion, I'm kicking the idea around,
Right.
is all that I'm,
Brad, you can make that decision. How's that? What you wanna do, all right?
well, the chair would have to be involved with that, so maybe just between the chair and Brad.
So, Ron, do you think that a resolution from our cities each city would help in the argument? A resolution in opposition of the bill?
I think if your local city council has concerns about you losing direct representation on PST's board,
Yes.
I think that you should be able to share that concern.
All right.
Is that politically correct enough?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
And I have been asked that, so I have been asked that by other, just, this gets filed, and, I mean, I have had other board members contacting me just in general about who's behind this, what does this mean? What does this mean potentially to some of the local governments? Because to the point you all made, I mean, today, Clearwater, Dunedin, Largo, Pinellas Park, St. Petersburg, and obviously then I guess it rotates between Old Bar, Safety Harbor, and Tarpon Springs. And then apparently one from a lot of the, looks like the smaller the smaller beach communities would lose direct representation. Now, obviously, the argument would be is there's 7 county commissioners, and they have the ability to appoint somebody from Oldsmar or Largo or Dunedin. They would have the ability to do that. It doesn't mean they're going to do that, but they would have the potentially the ability to do that. But under the way the bill would be written is, today, all of you would have seats on the board. The way it's being written, you would not, your cities would not have direct representation on the board.
Yes, go ahead.
And this would also eliminate citizen representatives.
Yeah.
So there would be no citizen.
Well, as it's made up today.
Yeah, well, but again, the way the bill is
Right.
written, or drafted, is the county commission could appoint.
Anybody that has a
Citizens.
knowledge of public transportation is what it says, right?
Okay, I'm
Which
gonna
is
go.
pretty
Or do you
ambiguous.
wanna say something?
Just
Brad,
one
before
other,
I go?
I'm sorry, Chair, could you explain, because board members have been calling me about the comments that Senator Roussan said at the delegation meeting about how one senator can kill the bill? Or what he meant by that?
Yeah, so at the very end of the meeting, Senator Rassan's point was, since the bill only goes through the committee process in the House, I think that the Senate has a rule that's in place basically that to ensure that senators are involved in the process at some level. If a bill makes it through the process and the senators from that delegation believe that they were consulted, or if they have concerns with the bill, they do have the ability to pull that bill off the local bill calendar. So, which effectively kills the bill. There's ways you could not kill it that way, but typically when a bill's pulled off the local bill calendar, it effectively would kill that bill. So, the Senate does that for obvious reasons, right? They want to ensure that as the bill's making it through the committee process in the House, the senators are kept up to date, they understand what's happening. One other important note too, when a bill passes out of the delegation meeting, so once the delegation, if this passes, go to Tallahassee. And let's say somebody does a strike all to the bill and it changes the bill. Typically, I need to go back and read the delegation rules for Pinellas County, but typically when that happens, it would require another meeting of the delegation, because that's not the same bill that was approved by the delegation to go to Tallahassee. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but I just wanna make sure you all know, like, if this is the bill that typically 99% of the time, when a bill leaves out of a delegation and goes to Tallahassee, that's pretty much the final draft. They're not gonna change it in Tallahassee.
Okay. Okay, got it. All right, couple things. First of all, I wanna say, Ron, thank you so much for being on our team, because I think, without you, we could be in trouble. But I think you're doing a great job, I appreciate all you do. That's number one. Number two, when I was first elected on this board with Brad, Brad welcomed me in. I wanna just make a quick point here to all of us. The city of Tarpon Springs gave up their seat back to Oldsmar so I could stay on the board. And then Safety Harbor, they also gave up their seat so I could stay here. Being on this PSTA board and being the chair of this committee, I have learned so much going to Tallahassee with you and learning from all of you. I think it's so important that the local government is involved in these processes for PSTA. This, to me, is a total attack on home rule. Home rule is being attacked right here. And the number one thing I'm really upset about is at the delegation meeting when I was there, House Representative Cheney repeated herself several times. Audit, audit, audit. Who's gonna pay for that? Who's gonna pay for that? Do we know?
Audited
We
every
already
year.
have one.
We have it.
Exactly.
The FOA
Evidence
audit every
appear-
year.
And
Yeah.
being on the finance committee, Brad, correct? We
Yeah.
hired that accounting firm that has done an amazing job for PSTA, doing our audits. Let's give it to her. Here's our audit.
It's public record.
I mean, I don't get that. She insisted on audit. That one thing
That's
that's
not-
stuck in my
that- I
brain.
don't think that's audit.
That really bothered me
Of
the
course it
most.
is.
So the other thing I wanna talk about is goals, all right? I'm a really goal-oriented type guy. So when we go to Tallahassee, we're there for 2 full days. We're there all day Monday, we fly in Sunday night, we're there all day Monday and all day Tuesday. We don't fly out till late Tuesday night. I actually changed one of my workshops so that I could stay in Tallahassee that day. So
It's good being the mayor.
right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
I agree 100%, we need to meet with all the delegation, every single member. I've already talked to Lindsay Cross, she said she'll meet with us. I already talked to Ed Hooper, he said he would meet with us. I already talked to Adam Anderson, he said he would meet with us. Rasan said he would meet with us, and so did Nick DeSiglia. I did not talk to Linda Cheney, because she was off in a different area, and I didn't have a chance to talk to her. But that is, we have to have
Told you,
meetings.
our goal would be to meet with the entire delegation prior
Yes.
to the delegation meeting.
I wanna make sure that we are meeting with every single one, those 2 full days, and then whatever else you have planned with the Department of Transportation. But this is gonna be where we can try to kill this as a team. We can work together, we should have a strategy before we go, and let's be ready to professionally talk to them and say, this is no good, this is against home rule, this is against killing local government. We on board? Sorry, I got a little excited.
Well, they don't seem to be concerned with killing home rule. What
No,
I would say is, we're doing a great job. Look at the awards we've got. We are not T-BARTA. We do a great job, and we don't need this. This is, to me, it's payback.
right, and the last thing I wanna just talk about, Ron, is the resolution that Commissioner Robinson brought up. I think if we do that after maybe Tallahassee, before the next delegation meeting, before we do that, we should actually write that and make it so that we're all in sync, that all of our commissions do that resolution, so we're all the same, all the cities are the same, if we need to go there. I don't think we have to go there yet, I think that might be a little ahead of the game, but I think that's a good idea, I like that idea of doing that, but, let's just, after Tallahassee, let's see what happens. All right? Does anybody else have any other comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
No problem.
Who do we have confirmed for the Tallahassee trip so far?
So far, it's, Chair Saraki and Commissioner Robinson.
What's the date?
It's in a week,
Yeah, Sunday.
November,
Next week, Sunday.
yeah, we're going up on Sunday, the 15th.
Oh,
It's Monday and Tuesday, 16th and 17th.
so it's week after next.
13th
Yeah.
and 14th.
Brad, you have it wrong.
What? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong,
Month.
I'm looking at October, sorry.
13th and 14th.
13th and 14th.
Yeah, we fly out here late the 12th, like in the evening on the 12th.
Mhm.
We'll be
It's
up
the
there.
week after next.
Well, I can't think of two more enthusiastic and
Home rule.
Yeah, we're ready.
representatives to
Yeah,
help.
home rule
So
heroes,
thank
right,
you
Jamie?
for doing that. I don't know, I'm flying to Atlanta on Tuesday that week. So unless
It's
someone.
just a short trip from Tallahassee to Atlanta.
Well, if someone knows of someone that's available for dog sitting for the entire week, because I'll be there
Hors d'oeuvre.
Sure,
till Friday. So,
It's only, what, an hour and a half?
yeah, and then, you know, in terms of the resolution, I'm sure that our city attorney's office for the city of St. Petersburg can draft something that could be shareable, unless you would have Alan work on it for everyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
either way, it's.
If- if-
I think Alan would be good, but I just wanna make sure
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that there's a draft that can get going, because we see all of this.
Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, I'd like to have something, if we're not, any city can do whatever they want, right? I mean, we can all pass a
Yes,
resolution.
but I really
I do
agree
agree that
with
it should be standard.
Yeah,
Yes. So we're all
a
in sync.
consistent message, I think, would be really important.
I agree.
And maybe tailored and, you know, maybe change a little bit to fit each city and.
Sure,
and
sure.
whatever
Work session
standards
on
are. Okay,
All
that's
right.
all, thank
Are
you.
we good? Hi, guys.
Council
That-
meeting.
let's- Hello, all right, we're good?
17.
All right, so we're good? No any questions? All right, we're gonna move on. Next item on our agenda is item 5, any other business?
losing
We
their
have
All
one.
right, no
We
other
have one
business?
tomorrow night.
Item 6 is adjournment. We are adjourned.
I'm gonna bring it up
Are we gonna go
tomorrow
get
night.
oysters
Thank you,
when we're in
Dan.
Tallahassee?
Robin,
I'm gonna go
that's-
today,
Just wrapping up the meeting, but
give this to Margalis,
What?
and ask that we put it, that I speak
Oysters in
tomorrow
Tallahassee?
night in the council meeting and see if we can get a resolution.
Where do you go for that?
The
Yeah, 'cause this is
aphrodisiac
not
oyster
right.
shop?
I thought that sounded like me when I had a trip on like.
I'm worried about
my
food
nerves